We went from 2 to 15 over a course of a few years.
Wow.
And so it became very overwhelming. Looking back, I probably should have hired an HR manager.
This is Small Business Celebration, where we introduce you to successful small business owners at their place of business so that you can learn something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business and get your next big breakthrough. Welcome to another fantastic episode here on Small Business Celebration. We're going to be talking about, okay, what are some of the pitfalls to avoid as you expand your team? We're also going to be talking about, you've got children, and a lot of people think that, okay, it's the children who are obligated to take over the family business. But how do you let them know that, no, it's okay if they don't want to? And to guide us through all this is Alan Kennedy, the owner of Quality Team HomeCare. Welcome to Small Business Celebration.
Hey, it's great to be with you today.
And for Visioneers who don't know who are you, and what is it that you do?
Alan Kennedy, and I own Quality Team HomeCare. My wife and I started back in 2006. We're a full-line medical equipment company for home care, everything from mobility to every little gadget you might need to take care of somebody in the home.
And things like that would be like the chairs that we're sitting in, and what kinds of other accessories do you offer?
Okay, we have the lift chairs that are also great football chairs, I might add.
Okay, sure. Right.
And then the other hospital beds, of course. I think you may have that in the background here going on.
Right.
We're really heavy into mobility. So power mobility, standard mobility, scooters, power chairs, everyday lightweight transport chairs.
So it's everything beyond just your basic wheelchair. You've got that, but you also have the ability to help their quality of life.
Exactly. We carry portable oxygen concentrators so that somebody isn't tied to a tank. We handle all types of equipment like that.
Now, Visioneers, you may hear traffic in the background, you may hear conversation in the background. Why? Well, this business is open for business while we're having this conversation. I wouldn't think of owning a business like this. This is not something I'd wake up one morning and say, you know what, I'm going to open and run a home care business. What got you involved in this industry?
You know, I went through school. I was going to be a teacher.
Really?
Came through school, decided I didn't want to be a teacher.
Sure, right?
So I came out of college just looking for a job.
Okay.
I tripped into a medical supply company that's no longer here in town.
Right.
Started working for them because I had a college background. They kind of fast-tracked me up through management. I kind of fell in love with the business, fell in love with working with people and the patients.
What surprised you when you did open your business that you didn't expect when you were an employee?
I'll tell you what, signing both sides of a paycheck is,
Okay.
you know, there's times, and I knew that I would have these times.
Right.
In all honesty, there's sometimes you don't write yourself a check, you
Right,
know?
yeah, I get it.
Sometimes those types of things happen.
When you did open up your business, this was in
2006.
2006. Did you have any idea that 2 years later we would have one of the biggest economic crashes that would ever hit this market?
When we opened the business, we was after the insurance market. Medicare, Medi-Cal, that type of Anthem. We
It's
was
all
after
steady revenue coming
steady
in.
working directly with doctors, hospitals. People are sick.
Right, yeah.
People need equipment.
When you had that business, you weren't really a retail establishment.
Not at all.
What was your business like then?
It was kind of a backdoor operation.
Okay.
We was often more of an industrial area.
Okay.
I would almost call it an auto parts store, you know?
Okay,
You
sure.
walk in, there's a couple of desks, and then everything else is in the back.
Right.
And that's where most of the employees were, and you know, that's kind of the layout of it all. We probably saw 5% of our customers at the very most ever walked in the door.
Then things changed.
Yeah, big time.
What happened?
Something Medicare popped out with. It was called competitive bid. It drove prices just to the toilet,
Really?
to say the least. It 40%, 50% cuts in products. Products that I used to get paid $150, $200 for went under $100 a month.
That's half your margin.
Right.
Is that why you moved to this location here on Rosedale Highway?
That had a lot to do with it.
Okay.
Went to a conference.
Okay.
Big kind of in regards to conferences, and I love learning and trying to follow different people along the way. And met a gal in a seminar that had built a business totally on cash.
Really?
And she was running a small little office, $1 million a year. And it's kind of like, I've got to know more about you. She was somewhat close to the area, so I drove a few hours to meet with her. That's where I really got my vision to step forward, do something retail.
Do you work with care homes, or are you strictly on an individual basis?
No, we definitely work with some care homes along the way. I call them six-packers a lot of times.
Okay, and for visionaries who don't know what a care home is,
it's usually an assisted living type situation.
Okay.
They have something that's kind of known in the industry as six-packers.
Right.
And they're all over town. You wouldn't actually know it.
it's a house that has like six
Clients, and there's 24-hour care that's going on in the home. And there's, in some of the very exclusive areas of town, gated communities, you'll actually find these.
Right.
Along with some of the poor areas of town. But I do work with those. Also work with some of the larger ones, you know, some of the 50, 100, 200 bed type facilities that are, you know, where they have their own apartment, but again, they're being taken care of as assisted living basis.
Are the majority of your clients the children of the patients?
The children of the patients probably are the ones that drive it a lot of times. I always say that my market is 45 plus because 45-year-olds are taking care of 65-year-olds.
Right. And if you're looking to change your accommodations because your lifestyle has changed, might I suggest you look for a new house with Mike Saba, a Zillow Premier agent with Watson Realty. Born and raised and never left Bakersfield. Give Mike Saba a call at 661-203-8406 or reach him at mikesaba1@icloud.com today. And Visioneers, if you've got a question, you've got a thought, something you'd like to learn about here on Small Business Celebration, reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and your question could appear here on Small Business Celebration, just like Jameson, who asks, my spouse and I are quickly outgrowing our workspace and need to recruit several team members. How did you manage human resources and what pitfalls should we avoid? Because when you were in the back office business, before you went retail, you had a large growth that happened with your business.
We went from 2 to 15 over a course of a few years.
Wow.
And so it became very overwhelming. Looking back, I probably should have hired an HR manager. I really probably should have at least outsourced one.
Why is that?
It just, the regulations were just so tremendous that I was dealing with. And I'm dealing with Medicare, I'm dealing with Medi-Cal, I'm dealing with having to comply with an agency that makes sure we're actually complying with all of the rules and regs. And so we actually had to be accredited, and they're coming in for inspections and they're looking at personnel files as well as everything else. I wasn't ready for that.
How did you work your way through that?
Very roughly.
Sure, right.
But we was able to work through, between myself and the manager I had at the time,
Right.
we definitely worked through it.
Did you end up hiring an HR company or an HR person?
Really, we ended up downsizing at that point, so I went ahead and maintained it all.
When you have that kind of a growth, within just a couple years going from 2 to 15 employees, there's a lot of ancillary things that happened, logistic-wise. How did you manage that growth? Because that can be overwhelming for a small business.
One of the things I was very strict in regards was doing it only with cash. I grew it only with cash. I would not go out and seek loans at all. And I know that's just the opposite of what most business people do.
Right? No,
they
that's
say,
smart.
you know, my original company I worked for was work on somebody else's money, work with somebody else's money, and I didn't want the risk of that.
Was the process where you would go through and say, okay, we have to meet these sales goals so that we can afford this person? Was that kind of the mentality that you...
Yeah, pretty much. We took it to the point that we couldn't survive anymore without an extra body.
So you push and push and push, and then when the employees start screaming and you have enough money, you say,
Right.
get another one.
Go ahead, I'll take the risk of bringing somebody on. I mean, probably the worst thing in the world is having to let somebody go.
Right.
And so if you bring somebody on prematurely, you're going to end up having to lay off or something along the way, because, you know, business, it's up, it's down, it's all over the place.
The chairs that you have, do they have the chairs that help people stand up?
All of our chairs take and allow people to come to a full standing position. That's the key feature in all of our chairs.
Have you had this conversation with your son about you eventually needing the chair that you're sitting in or any of the other products you sell?
Well, you know, we've actually laughed amongst ourselves and said, before I retire,
Right.
I need to buy one of everything and put it in my garage.
You got the friends and family discount, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that brings us to the Visioneer game. Now, Visioneers, if you're not familiar with the way the game works, I have a random word generator here on my phone. I have no idea what the words this random generator is going to create, but more importantly, neither does our guest. And our guest has to take each of 3 words that I give him and somehow associate each word with his business. Now, and you do realize the fates of the entire medical, not just the medical supply industry, but the entire medical industry worldwide is based upon your ability to get these 3 words correct.
You're scary.
No pressure, right? No pressure whatsoever. Okay, your first word is ribbon.
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 That is an interesting word to try to come up with here. But we had a really great ribbon cutting out in front of the building with Mayor Go when we first opened the business, and we had a really exciting time.
Perfect. 1 for 1. Well done, you. Your second word is translate.
Translate, probably one of the most difficult things that we actually have to deal with sometimes are the different languages. You know, quality team, we have Spanish speakers that can translate for us, but sometimes we have to go beyond that and we have to come up with other translations for people because Kern County is so diverse.
Well done, you. That's
Okay.
2 for 2. We've got one more. And it all comes down to this.
Uh-oh.
It's for all the marbles. The third word is distinct.
I think quality team, I think, is very distinct as far as we're different. We're very, very customer oriented. We're not sales oriented as much as we are customer oriented. We do not want to sell anybody anything. We want to teach them where that they take and pick the right item for themselves.
Congratulations, that's 3
I passed.
for 3.
I
The
passed.
medical
Okay.
industry around the world is safe because of you. Don't you feel better now?
You're nuts.
Well, we have the distinct advantage of being able to talk with guests like you and learn about the things that they were able to overcome, the challenges that they had, when they were developing the business and how they grew their business.
You know, I probably one of the funniest things, it wasn't so funny actually, that happened
the
along
time?
the way. Yeah, definitely wasn't. I was in the middle of an accreditation visit and the surveyor looked at one of my employees' profiles and says, you know, you have not pulled a driving record on one of your drivers here. And I says, oh, no problem. So I had it pulled very rapidly
Right?
to find out that he had pulled a DUI.
He was delivering supplies for you.
Well, and he was working on a provisional license.
So he's delivering product to your customers on a provisional license.
And when I let him go, he won his unemployment case.
And so how did this change how you do things in business?
Not a whole lot, other than I think I quit fighting some of the unemployment claims as much.
But now, I'm guessing now you make sure you pull these records on a regular basis with all of your drivers.
Yeah,
now.
we do yearly, yes. That's been a normal policy, but again, we blew it on that one.
And that brings us to our second Visioneer question, which is also brought to you by Mike Saba, a Zillow Premier Agent with Watson Realty, selling Bakersfield homes since 1992. Give Mike Saba a call at 661-203-8406 or reach him at mikesaba1 at icloud.com today. Visioneer Jackie asks, how did you guide your children to understand that they are not obligated to take over the family business when they begin considering joining it?
The family had no interest whatsoever in the business until 4 years ago.
What changed?
COVID.
Okay, sure.
My son was a school administrator.
Okay.
And he decided he's done with teaching.
Sure.
But he was going to stay he was going to stay down in the same basic industry, but decided it just wasn't for him. And he approached me to talk to me about working with this new project. And
the new project was the retail store.
the retail store. I just signed a lease at the same time. A manager that had been with me since '87 passed away.
Oh.
And it was very rough. But he said, I'd like to try the project. So we visited this gal down in Southern California, and we did the project. But I had this discussion with him, and that is, I do not want my dream to become something to you that's a nightmare. I don't want you involved in this unless it makes you happy. If you don't enjoy it, I don't want you there.
Why was this important?
I've seen too many families tore apart over business. I've just, the father or the mother just expects the kids to step into the business.
The success that this retail location has had in the last 4 years, is it because of your son?
Totally because of my son. This is his vision, it's his layout, it's pretty much, I've been in the background more with the medical side of it because I've been in it for 50 years. So I've been able to guide some things through it, but the actual retail location is his.
Do you think that a big part of the success that this retail location has had is because your son is not under pressure to take over the business?
I think so. I think it's probably played a really big point in that. Again, we've had that conversation, by the way, more than one time. I want to make sure that it wasn't just a yes answer that I got from him. I wanted him to really think about it.
We met you through Dave Collins. How'd you meet Dave Collins?
A couple of years ago, I met Dave through Bakersfield Business Roundtable, and he's just a great local business guy, and he's always promoting everybody, and he's just been a great friend over the last few years.
You mentioned earlier that you've been to several conferences, and education is key to self-growth and self-development. How do you discern which conferences and what information that you need to take in to further grow and develop your business?
We have a couple of national conferences that I think are really good. They have some really good sidebars that you can step off into some of the different conference sessions and pull from. I think those are key, those are important. It keeps you up to date with what's going on in the industry. Also kind of gives you a chance at the same time to see vendors, some of the new stuff that's coming on the market, those type of things.
It's no secret that there's a lot of business owners right now that are struggling. What do you say to your fellow business owner to encourage them and let them know that not all hope is lost?
All businesses, they go up and they go down. They go sideways. Right now, at the particular time we're talking, it happens to be the portion of time for our type of business on the insurance side for copays and deductibles. So cash is extremely lean right now. You have to make sure that you're looking to the future, you know where things are coming from, but not panicking when things kind of go down for just a short period of time, because you want to maintain good employees.
Alan, this has been a real treat. Thank you for joining us here on Small Business Celebration.
Great being with you.
And if Visioneers want to learn more about you and what you have to offer here, how do they reach out and get in touch with you?
Our phone number here, 661-327-5500. Nice and easy number. And you can always look us up as far as on our online at qualityteamhomecare.com.
And where are we?
We're at 4208 Rosedale Highway, suite number 201.
We'll be right back after a quick message from Planned Exits with the phrase that will stop all arguments.
Thank you, Michael. I often get asked who my target audience is at Planned Exits. Typically, I'm working with business owners of profitable companies that range between $1 to $10 million in annual revenue. Did you know of the 33 million companies in the United States, only 10% actually surpassed the $1 million annual revenue mark, and only 4% of all businesses ever reach it to $5 million. To learn more, please visit plannedexits.com.
The phrase that will stop all arguments. My wife and I were traveling to her sister's house one day when my wife just started to unload on me about all the things that were going in her life that was going wrong, all the things at work, all the things with some of her friends, all the things in the world that was going wrong. And as much as I tried to interject to help solve some of these problems, it just made the matters worse until the point that the conversation just got more and more heated. And by the time we got to her sister's house, the car was silent. The conversation had gone not just nowhere, but worse. And when we went inside and met up with Tamla's sister, Tamla just started right into it again, and she just went on this tirade about all the things that were going wrong and whatnot, until finally her sister said the phrase that stops all arguments. I understand how you feel. In fact, if I were in your shoes, I'd feel the same way too. What else? And Tamla went on and on and on and vented until finally Tamla and her sister got to the point where they started to actually have a conversation. And within an hour, all was well with the universe and they had solved all the world's problems. One of the things we do at Small Business Celebration for some of our clients is we do their social media. And not long after this incident, I got this very angry phone call from one of our clients, and boy was he upset, and he demanded that I come over, and of course I did, because I didn't want to disappoint the customer. And when I went into his office, he just lit into me about all these things that were wrong with his social media, this and that and the other thing. And then he just kept piling on and on and on and on and on, to the point that when I finally got a breath in there, I remembered the conversation from her sister. And I said, well, if I were in your shoes, I'd feel the same way as you do. What else? And he just lit in even further and started going on about some of his employees and some of his customers, some of the things that were going on with his family and his son and his daughter and his extended family. And he just went on and on and on. And when there was a breath in there, I said, I understand how you feel. In fact, if I were in your shoes, I'd feel the same way. What else? Well, he just kept going and going, and we did this a couple more times till finally, exhausted, he fell back in his chair. And the room went silent for a short while, till he finally looked at me and he said, you know, social media really isn't that bad. Well, thank you, I replied. He said, in fact, it's actually kind of minor and not really a big deal. And I agreed with him and I said, it's nothing that we can't fix on the next go around. And he smiled and he said, how do you do that? And I said, what? And he said, how did you manage to make the whole conversation stop? And I smiled and I thought of Tamla's sister when she said, I understand how you feel. In fact, if I were in your shoes, I'd feel the same way, too. I hope you enjoyed our conversation this week here on Small Business Celebration, and I hope you learned something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business. And we'll see you here again next week when we celebrate another small business making a big breakthrough.
How do you choose a cane? Well, first of all, you really need to kind of look at the grip and what type of a grip you have and what's comfortable to your hand. The other thing, style to some degree. If you'll notice, we have a lot of different styles around the building here. And then, of course, getting it fit to the right size for a person is really critical so that they actually have a power stroke position with it. How do you choose your recliner? First of all, by size. We need to look at the person's height. They need to be able to reach the floor with their feet. They need the headrest to be in the right position. So we have small, medium, tall, extra tall. As far as sizes, we also need to kind of look at what do they need for a weight capacity on the chair. I mean, do they need 200 pounds? They need 600 pounds. The most unique care device I think that we offer, something fairly new with this, and that's an electric bath lift. You'll probably see it in the background over here. It will actually lower somebody down into the tub so they can actually soak, and a lot of times people like to soak in a tub. You know, the standard everyday scooter is going to do about 4 miles an hour, but I happen to have some that'll do as much as 20 miles an hour.
Do they require an orange triangle on the back?
No, but they probably should. What's the one item that people just never think about the need for, right? When it comes down to like a bedside commode, believe it or not, they don't really think about the fact that they may want some kind of a liner in there so they don't have to clean it out. Explain the yellow truck. Well, first of all, I drive a yellow truck, and it happens to be company colors, and that was actually something that was by accident. But anyway, long story short, and then this was given to me by my son, and I thought it was such a cool piece, and instead of taking it home and putting it on a shelf, I wanted it here in the office. One of the things they probably send them back for more than anything back to the store to get is for a reacher. Because all of a sudden, they have trouble putting on their clothing or they have trouble reaching something from the shelf.